Okay, the Panic of 1907. This is a worldwide crisis. It's also sometimes called the Knickerbocker crisis. Um, that happens over a 6 week period in October and November of 1907. The stock market suddenly plummets 60%. Remember that laissez faire is ruling the day here. Government has little to no intervention in the economy. And when we talked about like the panic of 1873, once the bottom falls out, there is no bottom anymore. Like you just continue to free fall. There's no such thing as unemployment insurance. There's no such thing as, we need to close the stock market. There's no understanding on the part of the government that they either can or should intervene. Like it just sort of is what it is, and you have to wait it out. The Knickerbocker crisis in particular is going to be set off by a small group of speculators, actually just two men, who attempt to corner the market, and they're trying to buy all of one thing, buy all of one type of commodity. That's what cornering the market is, and they're using money that they have taken out as loans from banks. They fail at cornering the market, so they fail to acquire what they set out to acquire. When that cornering fails, they lose their money that they had taken out on loan from the bank. When word gets out that the bank has lost a substantial amount of money, there are what we will call runs on banks. Okay? So there's a run on the bank, and what that means is people start to panic that their money is gone and they want to go get it out. There's no federal insurance right now. Remember, there's no Federal Reserve. That won't come until Wilson, right? There's nothing backing these banks. When you go and you deposit $20 in your bank account, it doesn't sit there in a lockbox in the bank. The bank invests it, right? And if I go to the ATM and I take $20 out, I might get your 20. So your money is not there. The bank is just promising that when you want your money out, it will be there for you. But what happens when the bank loans money and then that money is lost? That bank goes under. Now, that's what sets off the Great Depression in part, right? And so a run on the bank is when people start to say, oh my gosh, the bank is low on funds. Like, we need to go. We need to get our money out. And if you talk to, I guess, your great-grandparents, like my grandparents who lived during the Depression, they'll say, those old crazy people who are always saying, like, I don't trust banks. Well, that's why I keep my money in the floorboard or under the mattress or whatever, because in the Depression, there was no bank there. Now, I know this is not the Depression, this is the Panic of 1907, and it's short-lived, but it is a preview of that same exact type of situation, okay? The Knickerbocker Trust Company is the third largest trust in NYC, and it will fail. That's why it's called the Knickerbocker crisis. It scares people when this trust fails. It leads to more runs, which eventually spreads across the country. The crisis gets even deeper when a large brokerage firm borrows against the stock of a company, the Tennessee Coal, Iron, and Railroad Company, which sends that stock into a free fall. So we're starting to see some ripple effects here. It will be J.P. Morgan, actually, who saves the day. Let's see. Before I get to J.P. Morgan, what is this? There is an earthquake, a massive earthquake in 1906, which is one of the reasons why the government doesn't have a lot of extra, let's say, gold on hand to help the banks, because they had sent it to San Francisco to help with the rebuilding. The Hepburn Act, remember, had regulated rates, and so the railroad stock was already lower than it had been in the past. As this railroad company stock collapses, it is saved after it's purchased by J.P. Morgan's investment firm. He buys it, but first he asks Roosevelt to promise him that he won't be sued or he won't have action taken against him for forming a trust, because remember, he had just experienced that with Sherman. J.P. Morgan is often credited with ending the crisis because he injects capital into multiple struggling institutions. Ultimately, Production will fall by 11%. Imports will fall by 26%. Unemployment rises to 8%. And JP Morgan's role in ending the panic tells us that we need to reform our financial system. We had to rely on one rich guy to save our entire economy. Maybe instead of relying on one rich guy to save our economy, we should have been able, federal government, I'm looking at you, to save our own economy, right? Okay. In 1908, a Senator Aldrich, Nelson W. Aldrich, he is the father-in-law of John D. Rockefeller, is going to establish and chair a commission that will investigate the crisis, propose future solutions, and that will ultimately lead to the creation of the Federal Reserve System. I'm going to get back to Taft momentarily.